What's up, everyone? Welcome to another video about the big limiter confusion. Why limiter confusion? Let me explain to you. So I'm working with lots of producers. I'm coaching clients. I'm mixing and mastering the music of clients. And I see that many producers of electronic music do not really understand how to use a limiter in a professional way in the context of production, mixing, and mastering. And there's one crucial thing which you have to do when you want to use a limiter in a professional way. Because if you don't understand this yet simple but fundamental thing about limiters, you cannot really use them because you will always get tricked by the loudness, okay? And with this video, I'm going to explain you how to use a limiter properly so that all the confusion after this video is gone forever and you will be able to use a limiter in a professional way. So let's start with this video. We're going to see each other in my Cubase project and I'm going to explain you the topic. So, welcome from my Cubase project. I have loaded up here an old project of a client. The artist is called Droplex and the track is called Faith. And we're going to listen quickly to the track. So you guys are going to see what it's all about. So maybe let's first have a quick listen. Yeah, this is the mixdown, which the artist Droplex sent to me and I did mastered it. As you can see, this mixdown was already clipped or limited, which is definitely not perfect. But yeah, sometimes you have to work with what you get. And now I'm coming to the topic of limiter confusion, okay? So I have loaded up here a few limiters. I have a Loudmax Pro L, Oxford limiter, Cubase limiter, Ozone limiter, and so on. And the first confusion is that each limiter has different names for different things, okay? So let me quickly explain you just very basic what a limiter is doing. A limiter is basically a compressor with an infinity to 1 ratio, which means you're going to have a signal and you turn down the threshold, and as soon as the signal passes the threshold, the signal gets limited. So it gets completely cut it off. It's not really cut it off because that's what the clipper is doing, but it presses it down so nothing will go beyond the threshold. And let's have a look at the different limiters and you're gonna start to see the confusion. So first of all, this is called the Loudmax limiter. It's a free limiter. And here we're gonna have a threshold, okay? So here's a threshold and we have a so-called output. Then we have the Pro L here from FabFilter. Pro L has a gain button and it has an output button. Then we have the Oxford limiter. The Oxford limiter has a threshold, it has an input gain, and it has an output trim. Then we have the Cubase limiter, which has an input and an output knob. Then we have the Ozone maximizer, which has a gain button and an output level. And then I've loaded up the Ozone vintage limiter, which has a threshold and a ceiling. So you see it all starts that all these limiters, which are basically all doing the same thing, have like slightly different names for different things, what they do. Okay, so this is the first confusion. And now let's start with the first limiter, the Loudmax. And here in the Loudmax, here's the threshold, okay? And when we turn down the threshold, as you remember, usually the signal should become more quiet because as soon as the signal goes above the threshold, it's going to be cutted completely. So it should, in theory, become quieter. So let's have a listen what's going to happen with the Loudmax when we turn down the threshold. And as you can hear, the signal is getting louder, okay? So this is a very important, if not the most important thing you need to notice, okay? So this limiter here, when you turn down the threshold, is automatically in the background raising the volume. And this is a yet simple but fundamental thing which you need to understand, okay? Let's have a listen to the next limiter here, how it's there. So here we have a gain button. And here in this limiter, you take the signal and you raise the gain and you kind of push it through the threshold, which is at 0 dB full scale. So again, when you turn down the gain, the signal is getting louder. Then let's check out the Oxford limiter. What happens here? So here, when we turn down the threshold, here you see the gain reduction. So this is actually the first limiter who actually gets quieter when we turn down the threshold. Then we have the Cubase limiter. Yeah, and the Cubase limiter again pushes up the signal for the threshold, which is sitting at 0 dB full scale. So what is the problem? The problem is that when you're gonna take a signal, you push the limiter, then until the limiter is working, until the limiter is doing some gain reduction, and then the signal is getting louder, you cannot really hear what it's doing because you are tricked by the loudness, okay? So limiter, it's very hard to hear what a limiter is doing, especially to learn all the parameters on the limiter, like how attack is interfering with the material, how the release is working, how the different algorithms, the punchy, the modern, the safe, all these algorithms, I would say it takes an experienced ear to hear all the differences. And when you are tricked by the loudness, which means when you push the limiter and the signal gets louder, you cannot really judge what you hear, because whenever the signal is louder, your ear will always tell you it sounds better. So you have to do all your settings while the limiter is not changing the volume. Only then you are able to properly learn the tool, to hear what it's doing and to catch the subtle nuances. So for example, here in Pro L, we have a small button on the bottom, this one here. This button is kind of a gain match button. So it says the unity gain button enables listening at unity gain level. The output level will be set to the inverse of the added gain level. So this basically means when you turn down the gain here, the output is at the exact same level turned down. And this enables us to push the limiter, the signal into the threshold without the volume changing. Let's have a listen. Nice, huh? Now you can see, or you can hear, we push the signal and it's staying at the same level. And only in that setup, in that context, we can really hear how the limiter is working. We can really set it up in a professional way and use it in a professional workflow. I'm going to show you the same. For example, here in the Oxford limiter, we can turn on the threshold and everything is fine. With the Cubase limiter, there's simply no option to do it gain compensated, which makes this tool for me not, how to say, I cannot use it in a professional workflow because it's too complicated for me to gain match it by hand. It's just annoying. So unfortunately, I cannot use this tool. On, for example, the Ozone Maximizer, you have a small button, this one here. If you click this button, now you see when we turn down the gain, it turns down the output level at the exact amount. And then we can use it while it's gain matched. Only in this setup, we can use the limiter professional. Same goes here for the Ozone Vintage limiter. What you can do here, you can click this button at the bottom, and now you see both are going down at the same time. So to summarize this, first, when you use a limiter, you have to use it gain compensated, which means while you push the signal in the threshold, the volume should not change. So you can really concentrate on and listen what is the limiter really doing. And once you finished step 1, you can then move to step 2, which is now you can set the output level to your desired situation. So for example, if you're in a mastering context, you can now set the final level to -1 dB true peak. Or if you are in the mixing or production context, you can set the final output level to whatever setting you need. So that's it for this video. I hope you're gonna learn a lot, and this helps you to use a limiter in a more professional way. If you are interested to learn production, mixing, mastering on a real professional way, I run a mentoring program where I teach over 100 producers, and you can sign up to a free strategy call where we check out your situation and see how you can reach your dream sound. You can apply for the call. The link is in the video description. And then I'm gonna wish you lots of fun with producing, and we're gonna see each other in the next video. Ciao, ciao.